Today's Political Podcast. I'm Jeff Pender. We're coming to you again from our new studio in downtown Jackson at Mississippi Today. And I have today as a guest, no stranger to this program, our very own Anna Wolfe. Anna, hello.
Thank you.
Glad you're here. Anna is our Jackson editor, but she's here today talking about a topic that predates that somewhat. Anna is also a Pulitzer Prize winning investigative reporter, and this you'll have to put that hat back on for this,
Sure.
this perhaps. Anna, this is what, the third week of what may be the only trial we see out of the massive, epic Mississippi welfare scandal.
That's right. Yeah, it's been a wild couple of weeks. Start off the year strong. And it's something that, I've been working on for so many years. So
Right.
I had this thought kind of leading into maybe a week and a half ago when John Davis, the former director of the Mississippi Department of Human Services, got on the stand. Like, I've been waiting for this for many years.
A long time.
Yeah.
A long time. Well, give us a thumbnail of where we are. We have one defendant of 7 or 8, one of 8, I guess. I think the rest have pleaded guilty.
Yeah, 7
pretty
others have pled guilty, and this is the only defendant who's decided to fight the charges, so potentially the only trial that we'll have in this entire case. And, it deals with a sliver of the conduct that people know as the Mississippi welfare scandal.
And a sliver of the $100 million
Correct.
At least that we know that was misspent.
Right. Auditors questioned somewhere around $100 million in spending from the Department of Human Services during the time of John Davis. And this case deals just with $3 million that a former WWE wrestler received.
Yes. Tell us now who is on trial.
Yes. So Teddy DiBiase Jr. Is the man on trial. He is the son of, I guess you might remember.
The $1 million man. Yes.
Ted DiBiase, the $1 million man, famous heel in WWF wrestling. And Teddy, his son, had, along with his brother Brett DiBiase, had gotten really close to the director during his tenure, and they were working together essentially to, from their perspective, bring things like leadership development training. There was some programs designed to assess the food needs of needy Mississippians. And these are the programs that the money allegedly flowed to them to conduct. And the federal government is saying these were sham contracts. This was not a legit program. They did not intend to legitimately provide the services. So that's kind of the question that we're sussing out at trial is, what is the evidence going to show about what the motivations were if the evidence more heavily shows that these were people that were just trying to get rich off the program, or if they genuinely intended to help people through these programs.
Okay. Well, can you tell at this point, what's the gist of DiBiase's defense in this?
Right. So he would say, and the defense is building a case towards, this was a legitimate government contractor. And, no matter how sort of pathetic the deliverables in the contracts were, or, how they, might not have been in line with the intent of the federal programs that provided the funds, he delivered the services and got the contracts lawfully.
Well, okay, and he's getting this money from TANF and from the emergency food
Correct.
Grant program, federal programs. What did he deliver? How much of that has come out in trial?
So there were a few different things he was hired to do, and I would say primarily what we see, communication, emails, there have been some evidence of presentations given, were primarily surrounded around this idea of providing leadership training to Mississippians. So, we actually Mississippi Today requested documents, dating back many years, any kind of materials, videos, et cetera, of the kinds of things that he was conducting for the agency. And one of those things was to shoot short, kind of inspirational video messages to play to agency workers, Department of Human Services workers.
Okay.
At trial, we learned from John Davis that he said that this kind of motivational training was necessary because he had been hearing from the governor, his boss at the time, Governor Phil Bryant, that the agency workers were delivering poor customer services to clients coming to the agency. So, these are workers, as John Davis said at trial, who were making as little as $18,000 a year, comes out to about $350 a week. Under Teddy's contracts, I kind of just did the math. So for the work he was doing to motivate the agency workers, he was earning roughly $30,000 a week.
A week, right?
Correct.
That jumped out from a couple of your reports when I read them.
So if you want to get a sense for kind of what was he delivering, what kind of motivational messages was he delivering, we actually do have some videos, and take a listen for yourself.
Okay.
I like to share a story that I've shared earlier with my Law of 16 family right here at the conference this week. It's about Shamgar. And this was a farmer who picked up an ox goad. And with an ox goad it's a stick with a nail on it. It said Shamgar destroyed the Philistines. Now this is in a book I read. I can't talk about it. I ain't preaching. But he picked up an ox goad and he killed an entire army and delivered the Israelites. Okay? So what's the lesson there? Just a simple farmer, right? Who picked up a stick with a nail on it and he delivered a nation. How awesome is that? Here's the lesson. Start now. Okay? Use what you got. Do what you can. We know that we have issues in our offices. Maybe the printers aren't working. Maybe somebody's got a negative attitude. But that doesn't mean you have to have a negative attitude, does it? You can respond in love. The printer doesn't work. I'm sorry. Guess what? Don't let that affect you. Don't let that come into your mind and drop seeds of just frustration and anger and bitterness.
You mentioned that kind of at long last you've gotten to hear testimony under oath from John Davis, former director. Who is John Davis?
That's a really good question. So, I think early on the stand, prosecutors, at one point, the prosecutor said, the $1 million question, why? Why did you do it? Why were you pushing all of these funds to these wrestling friends of yours? And I think, he answered by saying that he didn't have any children, he wasn't married, he didn't have a lot of friends, and that, he was getting something out of this relationship, this working relationship with these wrestlers, and that he loved them, that he really loved them. So a lot of the trial has been the prosecutors and defense showing messages to the courtroom that really show this very intense relationship between these three men. John Davis has described it in one of two ways. Either he was sort of a brother to these folks or even kind of like a father figure. So there was intense, passion there. And that's kind of how he explains it. But I also think, to your point, like the $1 million question might be, who is John Davis?
Right.
It hasn't really made a whole lot of sense, I think, to the average person that you would go to these lengths for this type of relationship. It's interesting because, and I'll play another clip, this idea of the importance of the self really comes through in a lot of the material that they were drafting and putting out into the world. I mean, it had very heavy religious undertones, but this idea of self-help and becoming a better person and knowing yourself was a message that they were putting out. And so for us to really not still know who John Davis is kind of ironic. Just listen to what he said at one of the celebrations that the Department of Human Services put on for their employees.
If we don't know who we are, if we haven't mastered self, we will never, ever master the master's plan.
If I recall correctly, John Davis has pleaded guilty and he's awaiting sentencing. Is that
That's correct.
where
So
he stands?
he's testifying at trial right now as a result of his plea negotiations. He is cooperating with the prosecutors in this case.
And again, you think this will be the only criminal trial we see? Is this it? And the question I can't help but ask: has this case been run to ground?
Right.
I mean, you have dug into this more than anyone out there, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the big question. It's been kind of the mystery throughout this whole case: is how was the investigation run from the very start, and was it run in a way that the public could see that all parties were being held accountable? To your point, during trial, there's been, especially during the John Davis testimony, there's been, questions of all kinds of government shortfalls that occurred that allowed this to happen. The way that audits are run, sort of not capturing what's really going on at these agencies. The role that many lawyers at these agencies play, who are supposed to be reviewing and signing off on these types of agreements. But certainly, probably more than anything else, John Davis has constantly talked about the role that his boss played. So he said very clearly that he was attempting to please his boss throughout his time at
His
DHS.
boss being
His boss, when he was director of the agency, when these actions occurred, was the former governor, Phil Bryant.
okay.
I think I counted, it's at least 30 times that has been raised. And it's, for example, in the last story that I wrote, when he talks about the faith-based initiative that he hired the wrestlers to carry out, this was a function that his boss wanted to see happen.
Via
so he
an
says,
initiative from Donald Trump
correct,
at the time,
yeah,
right?
that it was a federal, during Trump's first term, that he kind of initiated and that the governor wanted to see carried out in Mississippi. So, you just see where John Davis is taking the things that he wants to do and fitting them into the purposes that the governor would like to see carried out.
I know from your past reporting, things I've read that you've written, part of the issue here has to be the federal government was just giving this money to states without really almost no federal oversight, right?
Right. Yeah. So I mentioned all of the different ways that the state government sort of failed here, but certainly I think we're going to see, as the trial goes on, more of a question of what the federal government's responsibility was here. Yes, TANF, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, that's the program that a lot of the money came through, is a very lax program. It's a block grant. Federal government basically just gives the state the money and doesn't really require a whole lot of reporting.
Gives them a few guidelines and otherwise good luck.
Right. Yeah, there was a moment, I think it was during the opening arguments, that I felt like I was just having this unique experience in the courtroom, because the prosecution said something to the effect of, this was a program, these were dollars that were supposed to be serving the needy. And that actually gave me pause, right? Because I know that reading the federal code, the federal regulations, that all across the country every day, a lot of this money is spent on things other than serving the needy legally, allowably.
On purpose, right? Back in 2016ish, there was a sea change in this, and we're gonna start trying to do poverty prevention or some other.
It really goes back to welfare reform, 1996, when TANF was created. That it replaced the former entitlement program, which was kind of what we know as the welfare check.
Yeah.
The welfare check, that's the monthly assistance, kind of cash assistance that we give to eligible needy families taking care of children in the home, is still a part of this program, but it has shrunk to almost non-existence.
Even in Mississippi, where we know we have
correct
poverty.
Mississippi today spends about 4% of its annual TANF block grant on cash assistance to needy families. The rest of the money is spent in a large way just to kind of plug budget holes in other agencies. So if another agency, for instance, Child Protection Services is one big one that gets a lot of the money, can kind of say that what they're doing serves one of those TANF purposes, then it's okay for states to use the money to just transfer to those programs. So the majority of the money in Mississippi is not being spent on direct assistance, but on other things.
You mentioned the governor's name coming up quite often. I know early in this trial I read your report that there have been 80-something potential witnesses listed.
Yeah, that's right. That was
Is there
kind
a
of,
potential for the governor or anyone else we might know to be testifying?
yeah, the governor was on the witness list. This was a list that was read aloud during jury selection. So trying to see if any potential jurors knew anyone. And they read out a list of 83 names. So I certainly am under no illusions that all 83 of those people will be called. But the governor, former Governor Phil Bryant was on that list. State Auditor Shad White was on that list. You've got lots of current or former DHS employees. Bob Anderson was on the list. He's the current director of DHS. So really just a who's who that, we don't necessarily know if or when those people are going to be called.
Right. Something a lot of people might conflate, I think, in addition to this, it's a criminal trial. There have been people who have pleaded guilty, but there's also a civil case still
That's
ongoing.
right. Yeah, and so it's kind of interesting to see how these things interact with each other, right? This civil case has been going on since 2022. There hasn't been
The
a trial.
state trying to get some of this money back.
Correct. DHS is the plaintiff going after a few dozen defendants, people who received the money, people who inappropriately funneled the money according to DHS or alleged by DHS, and that case has just been kind of dragging on for quite a while, and there has not been a trial scheduled.
Okay. Again, any indication? It sounds like you kind of feel like, and I've heard others say it too, that beyond what we're seeing now, the feds are done with this. I know we don't know that for sure. But,
Right.
Might they go after any other folks or cases?
So all of the people who have pled guilty so far are awaiting sentencing, and typically from the public's perspective, that's kind of the best clue to understand where they're at. If people haven't been sentenced, then you kind of assume the investigation is
Something's
ongoing.
going on.
Now that obviously interacts with this trial because many of those people could be called as witnesses, and so that's where this trial kind of could be the signal of the end, the beginning of the end, for those folks who may be facing sentencing after this trial is over. And I think then we'll know pretty clear whether a federal criminal investigation is ongoing.
Where do you think we are in this trial? Do you think it could go on for weeks on end?
Yeah, I think that they said during jury selection, and this has just been in my mind, something like, up to 3 weeks. Well, we're going into week 3, and that's not going to happen.
Still going strong.
So it's hard for me to anticipate. John Davis is a star witness in the case, and he's on the stand right now. I think he's going into his 4th day, maybe tomorrow. So, yeah, we'll just have to see.
Okay. Well, thank you for this update, and obviously we're going to have to get you back either. Either for another update if this goes on and on, or if there's some conclusion to this. And thank you for all the good work you've done over many years. I know.
Thank you.
I know. So.
Appreciate
anyway,
it. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, I get questions a lot.
Sure.
People emailing, wondering what's up with it, and obviously don't have all the answers for what the feds are doing, behind closed doors. But I'm happy to give any background that I can.
Okay. Well, thanks, Anna.
Thank you.